Hello everyone and welcome to Fighter Combat School. In today's video we are going to answer the first questions that were posted in the announcement video, the most upvoted ones. I chose two of them. One of them is historical and another one is related with air combat tactics. Probably I'm going to go this way because there were a lot of questions. I'm not going to be able to answer all of them, at least not in one video, and I'm trying to focus on just one specific question per video. And if I can answer some more random stuff, which just requires 2 or 3 seconds of explanation, I will randomly add it in. However, the question that was most upvoted comes from Pseudo Tactics, and he says, I would like Ram JB to talk about what to be thinking about when in a head-on or a probable approaching head-on situation, or in situations where you are both heading towards each other at high speeds and slight angles. I find I make the most mistakes during or just after this type of passes. Well, the merge or head-on pass is one of the most common situations in any air combat simulator. The enemy sees you, comes for you, you see the enemy, you go for him, you end up going one after the other head on. Veteran fighter pilots or veteran virtual fighter pilots usually don't take head-on approaches. They don't accept the odds of what's in fact a random dice. There's a lot of randomness in a pure head-on pass. So you usually, once you are confident in your abilities to win a fight in a 1v1, you don't accept any chance that will give the enemy a shot at you. So most veteran virtual pilots will never go for a head-on unless the situation just demands it. For the most part, they will avoid it. Of course, the question is, how do you avoid those? It's essentially the question. That's what you are asking. Well, I'm going to bring one of my old writings, so to speak. Here you have it. Okay, the first thing you have to remember is that each time you are in front of the enemy, you are a potential target. He's going to be aiming at you. And what you want to do is him not to hit you. So the first thing you have to remember is you need to be as difficult a target as you can. Second of all, you really have to forget absolutely at all about aiming yourself at the enemy. Because if you are aiming at the enemy, you are going directly for him, and you are giving him an easy target. The third thing you have to remember is that if you are trying to avoid a head-on situation, is to, after the merge or after the pass, to follow up with a maneuver that will give you the maneuverability or energetic situation, depending if you are in a turn and burner energy fighter. So you need to be conservative with your energy or with your position after the pass. Probably you will see that better in a video I'm going to post later. I'm going to post a clip of one of my videos when I avoid a head-on, and I will analyze exactly what I do and how I do. Now, with those things in mind and in consideration, what you have to remember is that air-to-air gunnery is not easy. It's one of the most complicated things, actually, for the human brain to compute. You have to compute the correct lead for an enemy fighter to hit him while he's moving fast. Air-to-air artillery is exponentially more difficult the more dimensions you add to the suit. Now, I'm going to explain this in other words. If you are aiming at an enemy that's coming directly for you, think yourself at the guy who is going for the head-on, okay? If the enemy is coming directly for you, he's not moving relative to you. He's coming directly to you. The bearing is constant. You have him on exactly the same bearing. He's not moving upwards, backwards, leftwards, rightwards from your point of view. So you only have to aim your weapons, aim your plane, and fire away. It's very easy to hit. Now, if you think he's just moving slightly to the left or to the right, you have to lead. And you have to lead to the left or to the right. And that's much more difficult, of course, because you have to calculate exactly how much lead you need to hit the enemy. Now, the next thing to consider is that head-on situations are very quick passes. I mean, the enemy is on guns range, maybe you're moving at 300 kilometers per hour, he's moving at 300 kilometers per hour, so the closing situation is 600 kilometers per hour. That means that the time that the enemy is going to be in your gun's range before he's past you is very, 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 very small. And also that the lead required to hit the enemy change a lot, because you start fighting from long range, you have to lead more. As you are closing in really fast, so the lead diminutes, so you can't keep a constant lead. You have to pick a correct leading for the initial long range shot, and then let the gun sight come closer and closer to the enemy. It's very difficult to achieve a complete burst on an enemy which is actually moving relative towards you in a head-on situation. Now think about what happens when, other than moving to a side, the enemy is also moving upwards or downwards. You are adding yet another dimension. It's exponentially harder to hit a target is that moving relative to you in 2 dimensions than in 1 dimension. So if the enemy is moving leftwards, it's moving in 1 dimension, left, right. If it's moving upwards and backwards and leftwards or rightwards, he's moving in 3 dimensions. It's much harder to hit him. So that's from the guy who's shooting point of view. Now, if we recap, what I said before is that you don't want to do that. You don't want to go for the head-on. You want to avoid it. So in order to avoid it, what you have to do is to make yourself as difficult a target as you can while burning the less energy you can. How do you do that? Okay, 3 steps. First of all, start your approach to the enemy not directly towards him. Maybe 5 degrees to a side or to another. So when you look at the enemy, he's not in the vertical of your gun sight, he's to the left and to the right. The second thing to do is to provide for some vertical separation. So that means that try not to be at the same altitude as the enemy. Usually you want to be slightly higher, or preferably so. I usually do so, and usually is how I do it, as a little bit lower, maybe 300, 400 meters lower than the enemy. That will provide for the vertical separation. Okay, what we are doing is creating an horizontal and a vertical separation from the enemy. So he's heading directly towards you, but from his point of view, you are actually displacing from his own side. You are not steady. Okay. Now, as ranges start dropping to maybe 1200 meters, 1000 meters more or less, when you know you start to be in guns range and he's about to open fire, roll to the bandit side and start a very slight turn towards the other side. So for instance, if I have a fighter and I'm approaching him, I'm going a little bit lower than him and he's slightly to my left. As I'm coming close to the gunfire range, what I'm going to do is to roll left and start pulling. But don't stop your turn on the vertical on the enemy. Keep on the pull. So turn past him a little bit. From the other guy's point of view and perspective, what he's seeing is a guy that's drifting from his point of view again, leftwards and downwards at the beginning. And when you start the turn, suddenly the motion changes to one to the right and downwards. So when he was coming, he was aiming for someone, okay, I have to lead to his left. And he was pre-aiming there. When you suddenly change direction and you start moving to the other side, remember, this is very high close-up rates. You don't have time to aim for that. He suddenly finds that you are changing directions, and he doesn't have a target lead indicator. In arcade, he does. In realistic battles and simulator battles, he doesn't. He doesn't know exactly what you are doing. So he was ready to fire in a given lead, and suddenly you are changing the lead. The usual twist reaction of everyone is directly to change direction of his aiming and aim for the enemy plane. But again, if you are aiming to the enemy plane, you are going to hit nothing. You have to lead. And he doesn't know where you are moving because you are still turning, okay? The objective of this is that once you are past gun's range, he has totally missed you. And while doing a tracking shot on trying to do a head-on, you are burning a lot of energy because you are trying to adjust a lot of things and you are changing directions widely. Well, if you are doing the evasive move I explained, you only have to do a very slight turning move that is going to be very efficient in energetic cost. So once the pass has been achieved, you only have to go up. He probably will do a very hard turn towards you because whoever accepts a head-on is not really good at energy fighting. So the usual situation here is that you go past him, you zoom up, he starts to do a very energy consuming close turn back to you, and you end up being in advantage because you have used your energy to do a zoom up while he has burned his energy turning towards you. Now, of course, he's in your tail. That's the mentality of things. Things in this game are extremely offensive and they don't think about the consequences. They think that as long as they have the enemy in their front quarters, everything is done. So they will do everything they have to do in order to keep you in their front quarters. And if they have missed a head-on, their initial reaction is not going to be, okay, keep on going, create separation, we will have another go later. No. What they think is, oh, I missed. Let's turn and bring him on my gun sights again. So he's going to do a hard pull. He's going to do a very energy consuming turn. And if you are zooming, you have the perfect situation established for a rope a dope. Now, let's see this in action. Okay, so let's see how this works in real life. I see the Jack 7 is coming for me. As you can see, I'm aiming for his side. And as he comes closer and closer and closer, I dip my nose under him. As soon as we start to be in gun's range, I roll towards him, turn under him. As you can see, he has missed absolutely every shot. And of course, whoever goes for a head-on is going to do what that guy is doing, which is doing an extremely hard pull towards me. So after creating enough horizontal separation, I go vertical. I use all the energy I haven't wasted on a head-on, and use all the energy he has wasted on the head-on and on the very sharp turn he has done to go vertical, drop the nose on him, and execute. Essentially execute him. Let's see it again. Initial stages, you see the enemy is going for you, so you deploy your plan. You aim to his side with some vertical separation. As he starts coming closer, closer, closer and closer, you dip your nose under him, roll towards him, pull under him, watch him miss, and proceed. That's it. That's how you avoid head-ons. It's as simple as that. Hope that helped. And now it's time for the historical question. Hitpiece asks, what is your favorite World War II story? For example, the Charlie Brown and Franz Stigler incident. Well, you are so cool and nice that you just named it. That's my favorite World War II air-related incident. I think it displays a lot about what pilots were in World War II and how much of a demonization of German pilots was. Of course, there were Nazi pilots, Nazi officers, Nazi soldiers, Nazi everything. But there were also normal people just fighting for their lives and for the country. And it's really, a lot of people feel surprised that a Nazi officer spared the life of a B-17 crew the way Stigler did. But most people in World War II were not Nazis, not Democrats, not fascists, not communists. They were Russian people or Georgian people or Soviet people in general, American people, German people, British, fighting for the country. And just normal people, everyday people like anyone else. And I think that just displays the humanity that was behind what was a totally humanless conflict. I love that story. But you named it, so I have to choose another one. And ironically enough, because I just said what I said, it's going to be the story of someone who was a recalcitrant Nazi. Honestly, is one of those guys that when you read about him, you totally despise him for his political opinions, but you have to admire the guy. At least, I don't know if the guy, but at least his bravery and his piloting skills, his great effectivity in combat, but overall, the sensation that he would never let you down if you were winning with him. And I'm speaking about Hans Elvis Rudel, the Stuka pilot. If you have read the Rudel memories, you will understand why I say that his political opinions are despicable. I mean, even after the end of World War II, after all the Holocaust was revealed, after all the crimes of the Nazis were revealed, he was still a very proud Nazi. And he even shared the ideals of wiping out the Slavs out of the face of the world. So that's kind of the worst kind of scumbag you can find. However, that same guy was perfectly ready to land his plane on a rough field to take a fellow pilot on board after his plane has been shot down. And I mean, there's a lot of stories of pilots landing behind the enemy lines to rescue a fellow pilot. However, in the Eastern Front, for a German pilot, it was a really tough call to make because Russian soldiers wouldn't come and capture you and take you in a prisoner camp, which was bad enough in the Russian camps. I mean, you were not taken to a prisoner camp as in the UK or Canada or in Germany even. You would be taken to the Gulag, and that was kind of different. But even then, most German pilots, most shot down German pilots who were able to get out of their plane and landed behind enemy lines were shot on spot by the Russian troops. So you would risk your life. So he did it several times, and not just that. It's just, I mean, a guy who has, I don't know exactly the number, but it's almost 600 tanks to his credit. 600 tanks to his credit. One battleship, several thousands of enemy trucks, light vehicles, transports, jeeps, artillery pieces, whatever. I mean, the combat record of that guy is just staggering. But even then, that's not the most staggering thing. I mean, Hans Elvis Rudel was shut down some months before the war closed and the war ended. The injuries he got were really, really serious. He actually lost one leg. And before he was totally recovered, and with just one leg, he was not just able, but ready and willing to get himself in the cockpit of a plane for the last days of the war and to keep on flying and fighting. I mean, he was fighting for all the wrong things in the world. And the problem is that he believed them. I mean, I just said that there were a lot of soldiers that were just fighting for the country. Well, this guy was fighting for Nazism, and that's despicable. However, he was fighting till the very, very, very end after he has lost one leg and he was not ready. I mean, he was not healthy, but he did it. And again, as much as I despise him for being a scumbag and a Nazi, I have to admire him for his skill, bravery, what he achieved in combat, and how ready he was to put himself in really dire straits to save a fallen teammate from being captured or killed. So yeah, I would say that that's my favorite World War II air-related combat story after the one of Stigler and Charlie Brown. As you can see, very polar opposites. One of them is how gentle and how chivalrous pilots could be in World War II. The other one is how amazing in combat they could be. So, well, that's it. Well, that's going to be it for this video, guys. That's going to be for this Fighter Combat School. Remember, post up your questions down below about air combat tactics or World War II history or history in general. Thank you very much for watching and see you later.